What do you think of when you hear the phrase cat person? Do you think of the stereotype of the crazy cat lady wearing a bathrobe, curlers in her hair, surrounded by way too many cats, and she's in a constant state of stress and overwhelm? Do you think of a next door neighbor who puts out food for the neighborhood cats every night? Or maybe you think of a shady character from the movies, like the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland, or Dr. Evil and his cat from the Austin Powers movies. Well, whatever you think of, I'm here to help expand your mind. Aloha, my name is Liberty Peralta, and I am the founder and owner of Popoki & Tea, a cat cafe in Kaimuki. Popoki is the Hawaiian word for cat. We foster up to 20 cats and kittens at a time in our cat lounge, where they live until they find their forever homes. Guests pay to schedule a visit with us and our cats and can spend up to 50 minutes in our cat lounge. Our regulars visit us all the time because they can't have pets at home. The cats are also adoptable, so we also have some adopters that come and visit us as well. Since opening last February, we've found forever homes for more than 300 cats and kittens. The cats come from a 501c3 nonprofit animal rescue called Cat Charities. That's cat with a K. K-A-T are the initials of founder and executive director Dr. Karen Ann Tyson. Their volunteers directly rescue these cats and kittens from off the streets, from the outdoors, from all parts of Oahu, many from very difficult situations. Cat Charities is a foster-based organization, meaning that fosters or volunteers take care of these cats out of their own homes until they're ready to come into our cat lounge. Cat Charities isn't a shelter, so Popoki & Tea is a vital resource for finding homes for their cats and kittens. Surprisingly, I wasn't always a cat person. In fact, growing up, I considered myself a dog person. Surprising, I know. I grew up out on a farm in Waianae. My family grew lots of vegetables, and we also had lots of animals growing up. Dogs, chickens, geese, ducks, guinea pigs, pigeons, basically every other kind of animal except for cats. My dad, who was otherwise the Dr. Dolittle of the neighborhood, claimed he had cat allergies, and later I found out he just wasn't that into cats. It wasn't until adulthood, when I lived by myself in town, when I got a chance to spend some meaningful time with cats. I was working at a startup, and my manager, who was also a good friend of mine, was obsessed with cats. We had a company-wide community service day, and of course my manager, who found every excuse in the book to hang out with cats, set up a volunteer project with the Hawaiian Humane Society. There, I got to hold my very first feline floofball. It was heavenly. About a year later, my dad's best friend was moving to Tennessee, and they had 2 dogs and 3 cats, so they weren't able to take all of their pets, unfortunately. So my dad offered to rehome one of their cats, named Mara. He knew I was interested in adopting a cat, but I was traveling a lot at that time. So this cat, Mara, was at my parents' house for almost a month. By the time I came back home and welcomed Mara into my house and my life, my dad, who claimed he was allergic to cats, became a full-on cat person himself. To this day, when I'm on the phone with my parents, my dad will ask to talk to Mara. Mara does this thing where she meows every time someone asks her a question, which never gets old with my parents. Also, my dad now has a cat of his own named Justice. While I was working at the startup, my manager had told me about a Kickstarter that he contributed to for a cat cafe in Washington, D.C. I had never been to a cat cafe in Asia where they first started, and at this point in 2015, cat cafes were still really new to the US. While cat cafes in Asia were solely for entertainment purposes and the cats are owned by the cafe owners, the business model evolved in the US so that cat cafes ended up partnering with shelters and rescues to help adopt out cats that they found. Because cat cafes are more of a living room type of environment, as opposed to a caged environment that you would find at a shelter, where cats are often too stressed out or restricted in showing their true personalities, you get a better sense of how they would do at a home in a cat cafe. By the time Mara came into my life, I had left that startup, but I remember that conversation with my manager friend about the cat cafe in DC. I saw how Mara had helped me see a different, gentler side to my dad. And from personal experience with that cat from the Humane Society, I knew that sometimes all it took was one positive experience to forever change lives for both the animal and the person. I also knew that Oahu had an overpopulation of cats, and I wanted to be a part of the solution and help find more of them homes. This is where the idea for Popoki & Tea first came about. There was a lot of fear and doubt before I decided to start this business. I had never done this before. But once I was committed to making Popoki & Tea a reality, I took action. I visited other cat cafes up and down the West Coast, and I even spoke with a cat cafe owner in Portland, Oregon, who gave me some sage advice and a clear roadmap on what would be a tough but rewarding journey. On his advice, I looked for local workshops on how to start a business. I found one at the Patsy T. Mink Center for Business and Leadership in downtown Honolulu called Launch My Business. At that point, it was a 7-week course on, well, how to start a business, which can be a long and winding road. One of the biggest takeaways from the course was to start small. So I did. In 2018, I worked with a pet supply shop in Kaimuki called The Public Pet on what would become our monthly cat cafe pop-up. People lined up out the door to pet kittens, sip our handmade milk teas, and even potentially adopt a kitten too. There were 3 great things about these pop-ups. 1, we were helping the community find homes for rescue kittens. 2, it gave us time to look for a physical location for a cat cafe. And 3, the pop-ups got the word out about Popoki & Tea before we even opened. It took me 1 year to find a location. Renters know how hard it can be to find pet-friendly housing. The same is true in the commercial real estate world. The idea of having 20 cats in a space is not exactly something that most landlords would jump for joy over, much less take seriously. Fortunately and serendipitously, the retail space right next door to where we were doing our pop-ups, the Public Pet, became available. So I jumped at that opportunity, and after a bit of negotiating, signed the lease in July 2019. Popoki & Tea opened in February 2020. Now, why did it take 7 months for us to open? Well, the build-out process was not fun. After some painful trial and error, I realized that having a kitchen in our space would be much too complicated and way too expensive. Now, remember, I'm the sole owner of Popoki & Tea. This is my first time running a business. I don't have a bottomless pit of cash to draw from, and I didn't want to take on an insane amount of risk beyond what I was already taking on. So what I did was I ended up revising our business plan so that we'd make our tea off-site, just as how we were doing at our pop-ups, and form collaborations with our neighbors, including a coffee shop 3 doors down from us called The Curb, and a bakery on the next block called We Heart Cake Company for our cat-themed coffee and cookies. Remember that cat cafe in DC that my manager friend told me about? Well, they use the same model, collaborating with neighbors. At the end of the day, people are coming in for a positive experience with cats. This is the priority. As long as we can deliver a high-quality experience, it doesn't necessarily matter where our food and drinks are made. Now, changing our business model sounds like it came easily, but it definitely did not. Leading up to that point, there were many days and nights where I would cry myself until my eyes were swollen shut because I was so set on this idea of what my cat cafe should look like. And the journey toward our grand opening in general was very painful and difficult. But once I realized what had to be done, things moved quicker. When the grand opening weekend arrived on Valentine's Day weekend 2020, it was like the biggest boulder had been lifted off of my shoulders and the real work could begin. Little did I know that the previous year, as painful as it was, had in a way prepared me for what would be the most difficult year for so many of us. Throughout this whole journey, I had a day job that I loved and enjoyed. Unfortunately, I lost that job because of budget cuts that happened around the same time the pandemic started. Around that same time, I chose to close Popoki & Tea for what ended up being 2 months because of the pandemic. As an essential business, we could have stayed open to the public, But like so many other business owners, I had no idea what this virus was, and I had the responsibility to keep my team and our community safe. We pivoted and continued our mission of finding homes for our cats by scheduling private adoption appointments for people who were approved to adopt by cat charities. We reopened to the public in June 2020, and we have been so busy ever since. And in this climate, I am so grateful for that. Popoki&T is the oasis from the stressors of everyday life, and man, do people now need that more than ever. Through Popoki&T, we hope to ignite a love for cats in our island community. Every day, our team here at Popoki&T, as well as our volunteers at cat charities, see the results of society at its worst: indifference, hate, broken promises. Popoki&T, our role at Popoki&T is to offer the very best of society: passion, love, commitment. We welcome cat lovers to come hang out with our cool cats. Similar to dog lovers hanging out at the dog park, cat people now have a place too. And by the way, it's totally cool to love both dogs and cats. In fact, in my ideal world, that's what it looks like: people who love and care about both of them equally. We also welcome the friends and family of cat lovers to hang out with us. Some of them might be on the fence about cats, or maybe even on the total opposite side of that fence. It's a given that cat lovers will have a great time with us, and I'm thankful for that. I did tear up, though, when someone recently told me that after visiting Popoki&T, she started loving cats more and even started noticing more and more stray cats in her neighborhood. Now she's working on getting them all fixed and vaccinated in a process called TNR, or Trap, Neuter, Return. This is the ultimate goal. The overpopulation of free-roaming cats on Oahu is a problem that humans created. Now it's up to us as humans to find that compassion and motivation deep inside of us and do something to be a part of the solution, rather than leaving it as someone else's problem. There's so many ways to help too. If you can't adopt, you can foster. If you can't foster, volunteer. If you can't volunteer, you can donate. And if you can't donate, you can spread the word. So the next time you hear the phrase cat person, here's what I hope you'll think of: a strong person who keeps going no matter what. A compassionate person who cares enough to make a change. Not a shady character or a villain, but a hero. Thank you.